once bustled with manufacturing, mining, and farming. We all know from inspiration, history, and nature, we deserve a return to the success and growth of generations past, a birthright being squandered by corruption in Albany, and the depredations of an insecure, scheming mountebank posing as governor, who loathes both us and himself. As liberty beckoned to enslaved peoples behind the Iron Curtain via American broadcasts after World War II, we now say, believe, rise, and join us. Welcome to Radio Free New York.
Hey guys, welcome to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister, and today I'm flying solo. So that's just me here doing the show today, which means if you guys have a topic that you want to discuss, I'd love to hear from you. So you can call into the show at any time. Phone number is, if you're in the local area, 585-346-3000. Once again, that's 585-346-3000. Or if you're outside the area, you want to give us a call toll free, that's 866-552-1009. Once again, that's 866-552-1009. And feel free to jump in with a topic that you want, something that you want to discuss, or what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the United States debt. We're going to talk a little bit about federal debt. We're going to talk about state debt. We're going to talk about personal debt. And is our country going to be sustainable or not with the debt we have? What is going to happen here in these United States if we don't get this under control? And the reason I think this topic is so important is because right now we are spending at an alarming rate, and it doesn't seem to matter who's in charge, whether it's Democrats or Republicans. Doesn't seem to matter who is in Congress, who's in the White House, who's running the state. The debt clock just continues and continues to soar. And I think that this is, to be honest, this is a multi-partisan issue. This is an issue that if you are a Democrat, you should be really, really, really concerned about this. If you're a Republican, you need to be very concerned about this. A conservative, a libertarian, Green Party, Independence Party, Sam, left, right, liberal, progressive, conservative, it doesn't matter where you are on the political spectrum. This is a huge issue that everybody should care about. Now, maybe you're wondering why. Why should everybody care about this? Well, at some point, the money's going to run out. I mean, we're already paying so much money in debt service alone that taxes are going to have to continue to go up. And say, let's play devil's advocate on both sides. Let's start with, say you're on the left, and you think that it is government's responsibility and the mandate of government to provide things like universal basic income. Say you believe that it's important to have health insurance provided by the government for everybody, maybe a single payer system, maybe some other system. Say that's your belief system. With the amount of debt that government has today, there's no possible way we could afford it. There just isn't. There won't be enough money in the United States to pay for any of those things that you think government should be providing. It just won't be possible. By the way, those aren't my beliefs. That's just an example of beliefs that are out there. If you're on the right side of the political spectrum and you're thinking, well, spending is important, but maybe it's not so important to me. No, it is, because if you believe in like a smaller, limited government and you believe in having more money in your pocket instead of government taking money out of your pocket, you're going to be in the same situation. You're going to be in a situation where the interest alone that we're spending on our debt is so much that government won't be able to get smaller. They won't be taking less. They will always have to take more. And so we need to, on all sides of the aisle, sit here, look at debt, and say, this isn't something government should be doing. And ask ourselves, Should government ever borrow money? And that I think is an important question. I'd love to hear what you guys think about that. Should government ever borrow money? The number is 585-346-3000. Um, and this extends to every level of government. This extends to a school district who says they want to build a brand new school, maybe a new stadium, a new pool, a new track field. Um, should should they borrow for that? Should they have cash reserves set aside that they've saved up every year and pay for it in cash? Should government be allowed to take out bonds and do that? Should governments even have a credit rating at all? Um, and that's maybe like local government, but then you have county government and state government who also take on a significant amount of debt. Um, when it's time to fix the roads, should should we be taking out loans and money and debt for that? Or should government already have that money set aside because for years and years and years, they're collecting money for that? They're collecting taxes through the gas tax specifically, and through tolls to manage those expenses and make those repairs at an appropriate schedule. So, are we as citizens, should we be okay with that? And I know that this is split across the spectrum. Some people think no, government should not take out any debt whatsoever. Others people say yeah, it's totally okay. The government can borrow money. And then there's kind of that middle of the road approach where some people say, well, government can take out money and it can borrow money, but only for like capital improvement projects. So building infrastructure or repairing infrastructure. Um, my thought is we should be running government efficiently and effectively, and for the most part, government can plan their expenses. So I don't believe that government should have the authority to borrow money unless there's something very severe that's going to be detrimental to human life. I don't think the government should be doing that. If we're in a situation where government realizes that they are about to take on an expense that they cannot afford, then that expense should be put on a ballot, and all the people who that expense is going to impact should have to vote on it. And it should be that simple. And it could be as easy as hey, this road needs repair based on this year's budget. That money wasn't put in order for that. Um, yes or no? Should your county spend this $4 million on this road? And it should tell you right on there, right on that ballot. It should say the price for this project is going to cost you, say, $700, or cost your household $700, or however they calculate it out, so that you as a voter can go, okay, I'm going to owe $700 on this for this project to happen. And then people will get to vote and choose, do they want an additional $700 of debt to their name, or an increase in property taxes for that year for $700, or however it ends up working out. Then I think government would be much, much better about how they spend money, much more considerate as to when they're taking on projects. Bids for projects would be scrutinized, I think, significantly better because the taxpayer would be there scrutinizing the project. Now, a lot of people, not a lot of people, but there's a divide on that even. Should the taxpayer be able to hire somebody for the project directly? And an example of this would be if there's a community with a street that needs a repair, should they have the opportunity to, instead of having the government fix the potholes, call up a company that does pothole repair, and they get a quote and they choose to have those potholes fixed themselves? And in exchange for that, if the government's not maintaining their road or their stretch of community, they don't pay those taxes. That's something that maybe we should be considering. That's something that I think if that were to happen, you would see communities being maintained significantly better than government's doing, and also for a significantly less cost. Because the cost of government is huge, it's tremendous. I'm looking at the debt clock right now. 27, not million, not billion, trillion dollars. And the numbers are spinning. And they're spinning and they're spinning. And that's just the national debt. That doesn't include state debt. That doesn't include personal debt of Americans or anything else. That's just our federal national debt, $27 trillion. Guys, we're going to take a break here. You're listening to Radio Free New York. Feel free to post comments in the live stream, and we'll be back in a moment.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Escape from the everyday to a getaway at Woodcliff Hotel and Spa. Woodcliff features elegantly appointed accommodations, creative cuisine, themed suites, full-service spa Elan, and is Rochester's best venue for outdoor wedding receptions overlooking the city skyline. Woodcliff Hotel and Spa, where the experience is extraordinary. Located in Fairport, call 585-381-4000 or visit woodcliffhotelspa.com.
A reminder from Abate Monroe County. American bikers aim toward education. Distracted driving is dangerous, so pull over and eat. Don't try to read your mail and newspaper, and stay off your cell phone. Make a mental note to be more alert, making it a habit to expect the unexpected. Remember to look twice. Save a life. Train yourself to watch for motorcycles which are harder to see. Join Abate, and your family will be protected with a free $4,000 accident policy. Ride safe. Ride free. Ride often. Abate. If you ride with us. Google Abate Monroe County.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
All right, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. We were just talking before we went to break about the U.S. national debt, and we'll talk a little bit about state debt. We'll talk about personal debt even. But before I talk about that, I see Taylor from Facebook sent in a question here, so I'm going to read it to you guys. It is, what is the end of the road for the debt? I understand that having this amount of debt is obviously not good, but I've been hearing about how it's not sustainable for years and nothing ever happens. What would be a catalyst for things to finally fall apart, and what's to prevent the U.S. to not just keep borrowing into oblivion? So that's actually a great question, and yeah, that's right. People have been talking about this for years and years and years, talking about how our debt and our spending is just not sustainable. And I would like to believe that at some point, our elected officials would realize that and they would decide to stop spending money. Unfortunately, I'm kind of the belief now that that's not what's going to happen. What's going to end up happening to stop this is going to be a major financial crisis with our government. So, you could look at a few different things. One, you could look at states like New York State, where we've had a huge deficit. We've ran up quite a bit of debt, and this year, when the government decided that the response to COVID was to shut down the economy, that dried up even more of the tax funds. So their budgets had to shrink based on COVID response. Now, the budgets didn't technically shrink because there was a lot more spending that happened. But New York State, for example, has, I think it's a $16 billion deficit at this point because New York State shut down the economy. And by shutting down the economy, they just received an even so much less money than what they were used to dealing with. So by that action alone, by government shutting down the economy and now having less money, they're gonna have to spend less. But they might borrow more. So something big like COVID, for example, I don't think is going to be it. I think what is going to end up happening, and this is kind of like a tragic, sad thing to admit here in the United States, unless we have a serious correction and direction, unless the American people demand so much more from their elected officials, I think what's going to happen is we're going to get to the point where the debt service, the interest and fees that we pay on our debt become more than what's currently being collected in taxes. I think that's when elected officials will finally take a moment and say, "Oh, wow. We we drove this into the ground. We can't kick that can down the road any further," because that's what they're doing today. And they're using their position and power in office to purchase votes by telling people in their community, I'm going to bring this with taxpayer dollars, whether it's grants. And it could be something that feels really good. It could be something like, I'm going to get grants in our community to help small businesses. And oh, because of COVID, which actually was government shutting down the economy because of COVID, not COVID itself. They'll say something like, yeah, we're going to get coronavirus relief, $10 billion worth. And what are they doing? They're borrowing that money that we're now going to pay interest and debt service on. And it continues to build. So, yeah, at some point, an elected official is going to have to realize that in kicking that can down the road, especially elected officials who think, yeah, I'll be in office for 10 years. I'll be in office for 12 years, maybe 8 years, and then it will be somebody else's problem. The day is going to come when that somebody shows up and it is their problem. And you can see these type of things even locally. There were a situation, I think it was last year or the year before, I think it was Henrietta. If somebody who's listening to the show knows for sure if it was Henrietta or not, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But there was a project started by the town, administration switched, and when they switched, they realized that they were going to have to actually raise taxes. And I think they significantly raised taxes. Believe it was property tax to cover capital expenses that one administration did not properly plan for, and they left it for the other one. And what ended up happening is a lot of taxpayers were in a situation where they had to pay significantly more to make up for the loss. And that's the situation we're going to end up being in. At some point, the state and federal government, probably will happen at different times for each of them, will have to say the United States national debt is now so high that for every dollar we collect in tax, we're paying $1 and a penny out in interest and debt service. And at that point, in that moment, elected officials are going to have to make a decision. Are they going to cut spending? Are they going to finally do what they were supposed to do, what is their job and duty as an elected official? Or are they going to take a hard way out that they will blame on somebody else? And what I mean by that is they will probably not fix spending. They won't, because spending is how they're buying votes right now. They're literally bribing people with programs, grants, and other incentives and saying, if I'm elected, I will give you this government benefit. At some point, when we hit this point, they're not going to be willing to give that up. Instead, what they will do is say, oh, because of, insert thing here, coronavirus, a hurricane, some natural disaster, some political stunt that somebody pulls, they're going to say, because of this, we need to now raise taxes. And they will structure it probably in a way that's very deceiving to the American people. They will say that they're going to reduce property tax by 10 cents per thousand. So every homeowner in the area is going to get a reduction of property tax, but then somewhere else they're going to make an increase in that bill. And at the end of the day, the American people will then be putting even more money into the government's pocket, the same government who is mismanaging this money, piling up this debt, and creating this problem. So very, very long answer to Taylor's question here, but I think that what's going to happen is we're going to get to the point where the dollars collected by the federal government are not able, they're exceeded by just the interest alone on our debt. And I think when we hit that point, that's when hard decisions are going to have to be made by these elected officials. And unfortunately, the way things are today, the way the two-party system is, the way that both Democrats and Republicans not only work independently of each other, but also work with each other, I think if it stays that way when this happens, you're going to see them not make the right decision. They are not going to cut spending. They're not going to be responsible with our money. Instead, what they are going to choose to do is to raise taxes. You're going to pay for it. I'm going to pay for it. Your children are going to pay for it. Their children are going to pay for it. And many generations after that will pay for it as well. So in terms of will the government shut down because of it, I don't think so. I think what you're going to see, though, is government pensions, especially, will probably be one of the things that hits the chopping block. You see this with New York State already. New York State is sitting here. They're trying to figure out how are they going to eliminate pensions for state workers, especially those that live out of state. My gut tells me New York State is probably in the next few years, 5 years, 10 years, maybe sooner, depending on what tax revenue looks like, they're going to create a special tax for New York State pensions, and it will be applied to anybody who accepts their pension out of state. So people who live in Florida or the Carolinas, people who fled the state, they put in their time, they had a contract and a promise from the state, they left, they're living in retirement. I believe that New York State will probably do something along the lines of add a 20 or 30% income tax to that pension to make up for it. And once New York State does it, the federal government might pick it up a few years later. And they're going to start with that. You know, people who aren't state workers won't be impacted. And even people who are state workers but live in New York, they wouldn't be impacted. I think that's the first step. I think that's what you're going to see. Guys, you're listening to Radio Free New York. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in a moment.
for law and order. AM 1040 Avon Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, and FM 95.5 Spencerport.
Here's the latest forecast from the News 10 NBC Weather Center. For tonight, we'll have increasing clouds out there. Temperatures will rise overnight as the wind picks up. In fact, by morning, temps will be into the 50s and 60s. And warm, windy Thursday coming up, temps near 70. Showers will hold off until late in the day or at night. That'll usher in much cooler weather on Friday, back into the 40s and 50s. I'm Rich Caniglia, WYSL.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Whatever worries you the most, be it aliens, zombies, or activists, a sun charger could save your butt in an emergency. From short outages to apocalyptic global catastrophes, a Soul Mini Sun Charger gives you the edge to survive and thrive with essential power you'll need to get through. Turn your Mini Sun Charger into a survival kit today. Just order the Mini Sun Charger or the 2-battery Mini Sun Charger Pro and get a treat on us. For October only, we'll include a AA and AAA battery charger and string lights, because even in your nuclear bunker, it's nice to have a little mood lighting. Soul Green Energy offers this incredible upgrade to create your Soul Survivor kit to keep you connected and able to power through any crisis. With all 2020's brought, who knows what's coming? One thing you can be sure about is an offer this good can only last till October 31st. So treat yourself to some new gear at soulgreenenergy.com. SOLgreenenergy.com.
This fall is a great time to shop at Victor Chevrolet. Come see how easy it is to do business with us. Winter driving will be safe and fun when you lease a 2020 Equinox front-wheel drive LS. Just $179 a month for 24 months. Or enjoy the security of a tough and roomy 2021 Blazer LS. Lease for only $139 a month for 24 months. Lease a 2020 Chevy Trax LS all-wheel drive for just $98 a month for 24 months.
For Equinox, Trax, or Trailblazer, must have current lease and household. $2,500 cash or trade. First payment, tax, acquisition, and DMV fees are all due at signing for all leases.
Prefer to buy? Save big when you buy a 2019 Trax LT all-wheel drive with convenience package, power drive seat, and keyless entry and start. MSRP $26,145.
Selling for only $19,215.
$229 a month for 84 months with approved credit. This fall, find new roads at Victor Chevrolet, Route 96 in Victor. Visit victorchevrolet.com.
Geneseo Hardware and Rental has a new expanded location on Route 28, east of the village of Geneseo. Over 6,000 square feet with a large selection of plumbing, electrical, home and garden, and much more. Geneseo Hardware offers Valspar paint, a wide selection of rental items, plus screen and window repair. Get personalized service at the new, bigger location. Geneseo Hardware and Rental, Route 28 next to Wegmans Plaza. Visit geneseo-rental.com.
When you feel sick for whatever reason, don't wait to get help. Noise Health Urgent Care now offers telemedicine appointments using your device to meet with a provider face-to-face from the comfort of your home. Call 585-243-9595 to schedule an appointment. Noise Health Urgent Care is open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week, even weekends and holidays. Walk-ins welcome at our Geneseo location, 50 East South Street. Digital X-ray available too. Noise Health Urgent Care. Your health care, your way.
The Challenger Miracle Field of Greater Rochester would like to thank everyone who supported the construction of Monroe County's first specialized cushioned athletic field and pavilion, specifically designed to be safer and more accessible for children and adults with special needs. But they're not done yet. The last phase of this exciting project is to finish the construction of their barrier-free playground. So please consider helping those with special needs realize their dreams by giving back to the community and supporting this great cause. Visit rochestermiraclefield.org today. That's rochestermiraclefield.org.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
All right, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister, and we've been talking quite a bit about the national debt, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to call in. Let me know. What do you think? Do you think that it's okay for government to be borrowing this money? Do you think it's okay the way they're spending your money? How long do you think that we can do this before it becomes a serious problem, not only for the United States economy, but for the stability, for our tax system, our national budget? How long before we get to the point that this becomes a serious problem for us? Call in 585-346-3000. Once again, that number is 585-346-3000. I want to share with you guys what this debt breaks down to currently per person in the United States. So, if you are a taxpayer, your share of the national debt, this is just federal debt. This doesn't include your state. Simply federal debt, $216,000 or $216,000, $772. That's what it is. So almost $250,000 is your share of the federal debt. And I imagine most of us here, I know myself personally, probably a lot of you listening to the show, I certainly don't have close to $250,000 check that I could write for my share of the federal debt. And I kind of think most of us don't. In fact, if I look at that dollar amount and I look at where I am in life, I couldn't envision taking on another $200,000 in debt. I don't know how many of us could look at that number and say that, yeah, we have the ability to take on that much debt and include it in our monthly budget, to pay that off. And, depending on the terms, how long does it take to pay that off? Because every year you live, more debt is being added to that. So that's a pretty significant number. And so that's the debt per taxpayer, which is different than the debt per citizen, because obviously not everybody is paying taxes. So the debt per citizen, a little bit more manageable, but not good, not great. That is $81,000. So actually pretty close to $82,000. It's $81,874. So a child is born today. That is their share of the U.S. national debt. That's pretty substantial. Not a great way to start your life. So these are things that we need to consider, that we need to be talking about. And, kind of back to Taylor's question, which is what's going to happen to prevent the United States from borrowing into oblivion? The only answer is you. You, me, other voters. We have to stand up and tell people, no, this isn't okay. We're not going to do it. And every time you meet with an elected official, you need to ask them the question, what are you going to do about our debt? Sounds like we have a caller on the line. We have Todd from Greece. Todd, welcome to Radio Free New York.
Hey, thanks a lot. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely.
So my problem here is that the taxpayers don't share any of this debt. So the debt is the Federal Reserve's debt. They're the ones who have borrowed the money. The taxpayers have not borrowed a cent. When it becomes the taxpayers' Responsibility is when we, quote, unquote, bail out the Fed. That's the only time we use tax money to actually go after the Fed, or the taxpayer then has to pay for the debt. You understand that? So I don't owe that debt as a taxpayer. You don't owe that debt as a taxpayer. The federal government, in the form of the Fed, owns that because they have borrowed money against the central banking system. And that's how the whole pyramid scheme works. They get into the red, they calculate themselves into the red, and then they leave it up to us to bail them out with taxpayer money. If we don't bail them out with taxpayer money, then we don't owe the debt, period. And that's just what I wanted to explain a little bit.
Awesome. No, thank you so much for the call. Yeah, I guess we haven't been in a situation where the government hasn't been bailing out the banks and even large corporations for that matter. So regardless of where that buck stops, elected officials are going to have to make that decision. They're going to have to sit there and say, no, this isn't going to happen. And to be honest, I'm just going to be really forward. I don't think they've got the backbone to do it because they make too many promises to give away too many things. And they're gonna do it just like they did with the banks, just like they did with the automobile industry not so long ago. The federal government will always go and bail out whomever to save face. I don't envision, and I hope I'm wrong, by the way. I hope that, years from now I look back and I go, oh, look at that. I was totally and completely wrong. They did the right thing. They took care of us. They did what they were elected to do. Unfortunately, their actions have just been very repetitive. And of course, the argument could be made that new people get elected all the time. In Congress, that's not so much the case. There's no term limits in Congress. People are in there for 40, 50, 60 years. So maybe a good first step to this would be beginning to implement term limits on Congress so those people who are doing these repetitive, awful, terrible actions, they're gone. And hopefully replaced with somebody who's thinking about, it's my problem now, and somebody who cares about this sort of thing. I think that would be a wonderful thing. I think that would really change the direction of our country. Not right away. In fact, it might even cause a little bit of additional chaos because one of the biggest oppositions to term limits that I hear very often is I hear that means somebody who doesn't have experience, doesn't understand how Congress works, doesn't understand how bills get passed, like that person ends up in there versus somebody who has 30 or 40 years of experience. My answer to that is, wow, our system is so broken. If our system is so broken that we have to have somebody in Congress for decades to understand how Congress works, to get things done, it is so broken. We need to dial it back. We need to make it simple. Anybody should be able to walk in, get elected, an average citizen, go in and understand how to get a bill passed, how to get a bill written, and understand how to balance the budget. It should be simple. It shouldn't be so complicated that you need to be a political insider who's had family member after family member elected into office. These are bad things. These are things that we should look at as society and say, why is it that it's that complicated? And does it being that complicated contribute to the expense and the inefficiencies and the slowness of government? I think the answer is yes to all three of those. Government being slow is because government doesn't operate well. Government being inefficient is because they've created so much red tape and bureaucracy and just hard things to keep the average person out that things do move very slow. And the result of both of those things is government is very costly to run. We have to optimize it. We have to make it efficient, and we have to be better with spending. So those things are just things that I think are really important. We've got to bring it to the forefront. Elections are coming up in less than 30 days. So in less than 30 days, you're going to be voting for people in Congress, probably assembly, maybe some county legislative seats, maybe some city council seats or town council seats. Some areas in New York might have mayoral elections and other elections. Ask those questions now. Put that pressure on them now, so when they get into office, they know that those things are just very important to you. Very important to you. All right, guys, you're listening to Radio Free New York. We're going to take our last break of the hour. We'll be back in a moment.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
If you're looking to market and grow your business, make new business connections, and give back to the community in a meaningful way, consider joining the Greece Regional Chamber of Commerce. We're the largest suburban chamber in Monroe County, and we offer networking, education, marketing, insurance, and advocacy. You do not need to live or work in Greece to join. Our members come from throughout the region. In short, we're better together, and together, we're moving business forward. Visit greecechamber.org or call 585-227-7272 to join today.
A reminder from Abate Monroe County. American bikers aim toward education. Distracted driving is dangerous, so pull over and eat. Don't try to read your mail and newspaper, and stay off your cell phone. Make a mental note to be more alert, making it a habit to expect the unexpected. Remember to look twice. Save a life. Train yourself to watch for motorcycles which are harder to see. Join Abate, and your family will be protected with a free $4,000 accident policy. Ride safe. Ride free. Ride often. Abate. If you ride with us. Google Abate Monroe County.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Radio Free New York.
All right. Welcome back to Radio Free New York. We are talking about the national debt, and I want to shift the conversation just a little bit now because I've had people ask me the question, is the reason their national debt is so high and state debt is high and, quite frankly, just debt in America, it's so significant. Is this a problem with our failed education system? This is a question that comes up, and I think it's worth discussing this and exploring this because that question in itself really emphasizes a dependence on government. And that is something that I want us to recognize is that currently today, many Americans rely on government to provide education to their children. Some people use private school, some people do homeschool. I think that, to be honest, I'm a huge fan of homeschool personally. When I have children, that's something that I really hope I'll be able to offer as an enriched education to my children, being there, teaching them myself, teaching them life's lessons the way I've learned them and learned how to overcome them so that they can have a future that I think will be very enriching for them and hopefully successful and just having fulfillment. So sometimes when I hear that question, is this the failed education system? Really, what they're asking is if government has failed us. And when I think about education, I do think about the fact that when you go to homeschool and when you go to private school, and to be honest, some public schools, because I have had people who have listened to the show who have told me that their public school district has something similar to this. Maybe not exactly, but similar. This idea that we should be educating children and young adults on budgeting and interest and credit scores and how those things will carry you throughout the rest of your life. And I often compare it to, calculating the square root of something or the hypotenuse of a triangle or, can you get sine or cosine of this? You look at those things and these are things that are pushed on children in high school pretty heavily as like your success is graded on understanding some of these complex math problems when in reality that's not the case for most students. That's not the case for most adults even. If you become a machinist, an engineer, and maybe a few other areas of life, education tracks, career paths. If you follow those, then yeah, some of that complex math you probably use every day, to be honest, and maybe it does carry you through. But for the average person who maybe somebody who becomes a doctor, a lawyer, a a teacher of a subject other than math, maybe a employee that works at the grocery store, whether they're cashing people out, stocking the shelves, or sourcing product for the latest season, versus somebody who maybe works in construction or in HVAC or any of these things. The education system puts a heavy emphasis on things that don't typically carry us through life. And I think it's important to recognize that. And for everybody who is raising a child to see that there's a gap there and to know that, yeah, we should be teaching financial independence in home. And if we can get it in our schools, that would be amazing too. Because what would be better for the future of America um, than educated young people who make independent decisions and not just with math and budgeting and understanding their credit score and how to get a mortgage and sitting there when they think about applying for a college education and calculating a return on investment and sitting there and going, okay, if I go to this college and get this 4-year degree, I'm going to acquire this much debt. And with interest, that's going to be an additional this much. And the career path I want to be in, the average salary or the median salary is this much. And my monthly bills with a mortgage and my car payment and my insurance and my food and my taxes and all these other things I need to live for life are going to be this much. What is my return on investment? 37 years. Maybe that's not so great. Maybe that's not so good. Maybe I'm going to spend the next 37 years of my life being in debt to somebody else. Imagine if we taught young adults that from an early age and they understood it and they were able to make the conscious decision themselves about what type of debt they want to take on and what type of interest they want to pay for. And if they recognized and understood that, they would also have the skill sets for budgeting and saving. And then when the government comes in and says they want to take their money in the form of income tax and property tax and a whole slew of other taxes, they can look at that and go, wow, that's kind of a big item in my personal budget. You may gotta give 20-30% to the federal government, 6 to 8% to the state government, then another 8% on top of that every time I spend a dime, an additional however much the gas tax is now, and it changes depending on where you are. Plus, if I own a property, I've got to give 2 to 3% of the value of my property every year, plus school taxes on top of that. Wow, government's a really big line item in my personal budget. If I didn't have to pay for all these various taxes, I could afford insert something important here. Maybe that something is enough money to save for a house to buy it in cash. Or maybe it's enough money to save to buy a car in cash. Any of those things are really, really important that if we start educating young people on now, they will understand how impactful it is. And then from that point forward, the future for our country will change. The financial stability and responsibility for our country will change. And as people are getting elected into the office, the expectations will change. And those are the things that I think we can do and that we should do to bring about this change. Because to be honest, I think where we are today in terms of our national debt is it has become acceptable in society to have an excessive amount of debt, to have student loans that have virtually no return on investment at all, to buy a house based on the criteria of what the maximum amount you can spend is, instead of what's realistic for a long-term budget, and maybe what's something that you could put a sizable down payment on and have a very small payment on long-term, or buy it in cash. I mean, when's the last time somebody bought their home in cash? It happens, absolutely. But when's the last time it was taught in school that if you budget properly and you save properly, you should and could be able to do that? Because I've met people, very successful people, that learned these skills from a young age, and their parents told them, never take a mortgage out. Never. You buy your home and you buy it in cash. And these are people who are living great lives because that's what their parents taught them. And of course, their parents taught them that through some terrible, hard, extraneous circumstance that they went through, and they wanted better for our children. So I think it's really important that we carry that on and we try to produce the same thing for our children and for our future of our country, having that financial independence and understanding how important and impactful debt can be. Guys, thank you so much for listening to Radio Free New York. We'll be back, same time, same place, tomorrow.